Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? We are here at day 2 of the Raleigh Fishing and Saltwater Expo here. We have our first guest, a little hors d'oeuvre to get us started for the day. Sir, just why don't you tell everyone at home, Dave, what you do and what you're doing here?
Well, my name's Dave, and got a line of Moonshine BBQ sauce and rubs that I craft hand locally here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. How long have you been doing this for?
Since 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
What got you into this?
I cooked for a number of years professionally and decided to leave that. And a friend of mine says, maybe you should try and put that in a jar. Mm-hmm. We're not friends anymore because now I got 72 SKUs of items. So it's been a big jump from one sauce to 72 items.
Mm-hmm. That is a huge jump. Did you do this as a hobby before you went into it full time, or was this always like 100% I was just going to jump into it with both feet?
No, I had messed with it a little bit, but never really did anything with it. And like I said, after my friend said put one in a jar, I just went in whole hog and went from just making a couple to 72 items to having my own manufacturing facility. So I do everything in-house.
Wow, my goodness. So what right now is your best seller?
I would say probably the lineup that I've got here, my best sellers. I got my barbecue rub, my butt rub, cow coal, which is a charcoal-based rub, my mustard sauce, my vinegar sauce, a smoked cherry sauce, which is crazy good, and then my 2 new items, which would be my Bloody Mary mixes that I call Moo mixes because they're all made with moonshine.
How did you come up with that? That's a great advertising thing,
Well,
Moo mixes.
to be honest with you, where I live, I'm kind of on Moonshine Alley right there. You know, the bootlegger ran through there back in the day, so that's how I kind of developed the name of the company. Still there, because that's where the liquor comes from for the product, and there because the bootlegger still survives. So we're all still there.
Okay, fascinating. What is the biggest difference between a mop sauce, a ketchup-based sauce, just for people at home that want to start dabbling in barbecue but don't know their way around the grill?
Most barbecue sauces are going to be tomato base of some sort, tomato paste or ketchup or something like that. And then you have another sect, which is a vinegar sauce. And there's a lot of variations, but a traditional Carolina vinegar sauce is about 99% vinegar and 1% everything else.
Wow.
So it is all vinegar. Comes across as a very clean, crisp product, but there's 2 kinds of people, the kind of people that like vinegar and the kind of people that don't like vinegar. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm. No, that is true. And usually I think you see it more on pork, like you said, correct?
Yeah, you can use it in pork, but you know, I always tell people think out of the box. So my mop sauce works on a fish taco, works on a turkey sandwich, a brisket sandwich, you know, as well as my other tomato-based products, which all my products, I mill my own ketchup with tomato paste, so I don't buy commercial ketchup. So I mill everything in the jar myself.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive. So if people wanted to find you, you know, they're a little nervous to get on the roads today, where could they find your product?
Well, here at the show, I'm in booth 100. And if you don't want to come to the show and you want to find me online, you can go to www.stillthereshinesauce.com. You can view all my products. I've got my nutritional panels on there. And there's also an updated schedule of where I'm going to be.
Awesome.
On there it says, find Billy Bob. And when you look at that schedule, you'll find me somewhere.
Do you have any competitions coming up, or do you do anything like that? Because I know barbecue cook-offs are big now.
Yeah, I don't do any professional cooking anymore. After 35 years of it, I was about done with that. So all I do is produce my product and go all around the country and sell it, and sell online, so on and so forth.
Awesome stuff. Well, sir, I don't want to keep you too long today, guys. This is kind of the pre-show warm-up here. What I'm going to be doing is we're going to be taking a 10 to 15-minute break, and I'm going to be pulling up the schedule of who we're going to be having on today. I believe our next guest is scheduled for 10:30-ish, but I'll let you know. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Alrighty, guys, let's get on.
Are you
up
guys
here.
live? You guys go live at all for these?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. So let me
You're
hit
listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Perfect. And we're groovy. We're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Raleigh Fishing Expos. Thomas with Fishing the DMV. We are live right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Had a couple of cancellations this morning due to the weather, so what we're doing right now is we are going with Kyle Farewell, or Kyle of Farewell Fishing. Apologies there. Kyle, thank you so much for going on and showing up notice.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So, yeah, I mean, tell everyone at home that are listening, like, what you do and what you're doing here.
Yeah, so I run Farewell Fishing Guide Service. Been doing it for about a year and a half now. Created a big opportunity in June where, unfortunately, my main job as a layoff had happened, so it created a lot of opportunity. Had to make a tough decision of, do I go back to corporate world or do I go, do this thing full time? So, been doing it for a year and a half total and full time since June. So, a lot of what we service is Jordan Lake and Sharon Harris Lake, crappie and bass trips. The majority of the trips are crappie completely year round. The bass trips are typically during the prime time, which can be April through June. So offer 3, 4, 5, and 6 hour trips for bass and crappie, and the main goal is to get people outside in the outdoors. I've been with the Take a Warrior Fishing group and help with them a bunch, and so excited to keep it growing and get people outside.
How did you get involved in this? Was it just something you've always wanted to do, or it fell in your lap, or what happened?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So ever since I was 7 years old, my dad and I, we originally were in New Hampshire, moved down here in 2019, and it kind of just came about as I learned these lakes and really, found a love for crappie fishing. Honestly, it wasn't something that we had really done a whole lot up north. So it created a big jump. It was a big stepping stone to be able to see what I saw up north when we go on a fishing trip and see those guides going down the rivers and taking people out. And I told my dad, I said, I want to do that. I want to do that someday. So I'll be able to take that big leap and getting all the credentials. I got my captain's license. I got LLC. I got everything that I need to be fully covered. And it's just been an absolute blast. The feedback that I get getting people outside, whether it's catching their first fish or the biggest crappie or bass they've ever caught in. It's really exciting. It's really awesome. It's good. It's very fulfilling.
I don't think people appreciate getting a captain's license, all the rigmarole. At least, I cover Virginia, Maryland. If someone wants to get a guiding license just to fish on Smith, they're going to make you study at least their tidal charts and all this other stuff. It's like, I'm on a lake. Why do I need to know this? It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's a lot. When I first got involved and try to understand what are the credentials, to be honest with you, they're a little bit of a gray area. You'll talk to some people and they'll say, you don't need it. And you'll talk to some and they'll say, you absolutely do. And as I looked into it, when I made the decision that I'm going to do this full time, I decided that I was going to get that captain's license. I was going to make sure that I was going to do it the right way. When you're out on the boat, you're everything. You're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a mechanic, you're the guide. You're responsible for those people on your boat, mm-hmm. And not everyone has that. So I want to make sure that I was covered and people felt safe getting on my boat, knowing that I had the right credentials to be able to keep them safe while out on the water.
Crappie fishing, that's growing and exploding, and it almost feels like it used to be always bass fishing pioneered everything, and now there's so many things like the crappie breaks, forward-facing sonar. So many things are being pioneered in the crappie industry and moving over. What is crappie fishing like in this Raleigh, North Carolina area?
You're not wrong. It's definitely exploding. It's gotten really big over the years since I've been down here in 2019. And, you could be 2 years ago at Ebenezer Bridge down on Jordan. From December through January, you're seeing at least 40 boats around that area, So people are waiting. They know that's the right time to get in them big crappie. They're full of eggs. They're feeding on shad, and they group up tight this time of year, especially when that stable, cooler weather. You can get on them pretty good. So, I'm excited to see what happens with North Carolina wildlife and how they continue to try to maintain these fisheries. I think there's definitely work that needs to be done to ensure that our fisheries are growing, they stay healthy. There's a lot of pressure on these lakes down here, specifically for the bass, since MLF came down twice. That was, over the years, you look at those tournament weights, and they're still very good weights, but they're not as consistent as they used to be as you look over the years prior to that, really exploding over time. So crappie's growing more and more. The trails are coming down. They're getting bigger and bigger, more entries. So again, it's, the COVID really made an explosion in the outdoor world for a lot of organizations, and, to be able to get outside is a really big deal. There's more and more people involved than ever. So see a lot more people out there crappie fishing and bass fishing.
What do you think your split is right now, crappie versus bass fishing, when it comes to trips?
For a whole year, it's probably 80-20, if not 80-15. There's a lot of people that want to get out there crappie fishing.
That's fascinating.
It's amazing, and it's really great knowing that the sport of crappie is really growing, and there's a lot of opportunities, especially for kids, because the pressure for bass and whatnot is so high. It's a lot harder to get kids out there on bass, especially if the bass are deep. Let's say in the summertime, you're not going to be having a kid throwing a DT14 on a spinning rod. You're going to throw a little swim bait on, and you're going to hope that you can get them on, and that's why really that April through June is the best time. You get that shad spawn, you can get them on top water, you got them where they're up shallow. It's a lot easier to get, folks on fish. The crappie, being able to stay on them year round is a really big deal, and that's the beauty about being out on the lake as often as I am, to be able to understand where these fish are moving, what they're doing, to be able to stay on them for every single trip and be able to get folks on fish.
Now, I guess this will be my two questions here. So, do you scope?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I scope.
So next question is, when you're taking people out crappie fishing, is that are you spending as much time fishing as it is teaching them scope and learning it? What's that like?
Yeah, so like teaching just comes natural for me. It's something that, if you go on the Google reviews, I get a lot of feedback on how knowledgeable and how much teaching I do. It just comes naturally because I hear a lot of folks, right before I came here to the booth, someone came by and said, I can't get out in there and get on them. So I'm not the type of guide and captain to keep things quiet too. People that follow me on social media know that when I make a post, I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. I'm not gonna keep everything completely quiet and silent. I think it's really important to get folks, give them that information so they can get out there and enjoy it as much as I do, and be able to teach is really important. A lot of what I do for my trips is I ask, what are you hoping to get out of these trips? What would be a win for you when you get off this boat? Do you want to learn forward-facing sonar? Do you want to understand their patterns? Do you want to understand how to break down these maps and break down these lakes throughout the year? What is it that you're hoping to get out of these trips that will make these trips a win for you? Since they're not free, people are paying for these trips, and I want to make sure they're getting every penny worth.
No, that is interesting because when I got scope, and I'm not talking about the controversy, but the fun factor of it. I wanted to fish in the winter more. It was fun, and I was going perch fishing, crappie fishing, bluegill. I do bass too, but there was that fun factor there. I wonder how much that is into it with the crappie trips now, where you're going to go out there, and I assume, like you just said, the catch rates are more consistent. You're going to go out there, and the fun, you're going to catch something.
Yeah. And I tell anyone, are you on them, right? People will say, are you catching them? And I'll say, it really depends on the weather. The weather is the number one factor in all of it. I was on a trip 5 days ago before this cold front hit, and it was prefrontal. We went out there at Jordan, we caught a 2-man limit in under an hour. We caught over 40 fish in under an hour.
Damn.
That was a 6-hour trip. We caught well over 60, 70 fish. This cold front hit, well, all of a sudden those fish they started getting lower in the water column, and they had lockjaw. And that second trip, this was 3 days ago, I pulled out of my driveway, it's 19 degrees in the morning. So, those fish getting out there, we still caught 30 fish in that 4-hour trip, which I'll take all day long, but it's really going to be weather dependent. The weather factor is a really big deal in determining how those trips are going to go. At the end of the day, I'm going to do whatever I can to help them get on them fish to be able to have a good experience.
We got Victor Chart 36. He asks on Instagram, what this time of year, what is your go-to bait just to get a fish in the live well? And I'm assuming you mean crappie fishing, so I'll ask it that way.
Yeah, if it's crappie fishing, you see everyone dropping minnows down, right? For me personally, I like to do different things than what other people are doing. Same thing in the summertime. When people are out there and they think they're deep, to be honest with you, people are shocked when I say this, I'm fishing for crappie in 4 to 6 foot of water. And a lot of people hear that and like, there's no way. A lot of it is really dependent on the bait, and that's a whole nother topic to get into. If I'm going out right now in the wintertime, I'm either going to be looking for two things. It's really going to be dependent on the lake. Is there structure for them to hold on, such as bridges being a perfect example?
Interesting.
Or are those fish going to be suspended over deep water? Jordan and Harris, they're completely different lakes. Harris, they're going to be suspended over deep water. Jordan, they're going to be on that structure and suspended because they have the opportunity to be able to do both. Exclusively right now, I use a zipper minnow. It's a Badass Bait zipper minnow, Badass with 2 Z's at the end. It's a company that I partner with. I'm very selected with who I work with because I want to be able to get people on fish. So that zipper minnow is everything that I use on my boat. It's the only jig and only plastic that I use on trips, and it's consistent. That day, 5 days ago, when I said that we had, 40 fish in under an hour, that was straight on a jig head. You know, we had a 32nd ounce up top and a 16th down bottom. And if it took a while to get down, I'll just run 2/16.
Wow.
2 jigs, you know, about 12 to 16 inches apart. And a lot of it, and this is where scope really comes into play, and understanding, do these fish want to move or do they want it dead stick? What a lot of people don't realize, especially with live scope, is, oh, they see a fish coming. Well, let's say they were dead sticking it. Why are you going to start jigging it and moving it? Right? That fish was coming to you for a reason. So, you know, we'll say, you know, they'll start moving it and the fish will kind of turn away and they're like, oh man, I said, keep that right there. Don't move it. Sure enough, that fish is coming because it's dead stick. It's just sitting there and they're getting bit, right? It's understanding their behaviors, and every fish is going to be different, right? So, a lot of these fish, depending on what the weather's doing, is going to depend on how they set up. But 25 to 35 feet of water right now on Jordan is the sweet spot.
Wow. And then, guys, as always, I'll be giving away gift cards to Jake's Bait and Tackle for the best questions asked throughout the day. I'll let you guys know when that happens. Got another one on Instagram. Let's see. We got, and I'm sorry for some of you. You have some weird names on social media. PSU Aaron. What does he think of crappie fishing on High Rock?
On High Rock?
Yeah.
That place has exploded over the past couple of years. There's a lot of really big fish being caught. I think a lot of, you know, getting up on the Yadkin chain, there's not as much pressure. When people come to North Carolina, they hear all about Jordan, Harrison Falls. They're always the elite 3, right? Well, being able to get away from these lakes where they're not going to be as pressured.
Interesting, yeah.
You know, those fish aren't going to be as exposed compared to these lakes around here where, you know, you're constantly getting people out there every single day. Those fish are a lot more pressured, so those fish are able to get bigger out there because they're not as pressured, and that's why you're seeing a lot of really good weights for crappie. You know, you're seeing 3-pounders being caught out of there. It's a lot harder to get those 3-pounders in, you know, Harris and Jordan, and Falls isn't as top notch, if you will, compared to Harris and Jordan, but it's also the least pressured for crappie compared to the, you know, the total 3.
So does it balance out?
Yeah, it's got to balance over time.
Why do you think High Rock boomed like it did?
Honestly, besides the pressure, the bait out in that lake, every time I've got on there, I understand why people call it the mud hole, right? Like that lake is always muddy every time that I've gone there, and those fish group up heavy. You know, they'll group up really good out on Jordan, they'll group up really good out on Harris, but you can get out there, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands, grouped up in some specific areas. When they find that sweet spot, you can get in them really, really good. You know, so the fact that they're not as pressured, it's not as hard to get out there to be able to throw a jig head, you know, above them, be able to swim it over their head and have them to want to eat it. You know, out here, they've seen how many jig heads, they've seen how many minnows, especially this time of year where everyone's vertical dropping, you know, on those fish. Pressure's everything.
Do you think it's the bait or the boat? I had an interesting biologist on for Texas over the summer, and he talked about how when they put cameras and scuba divers down to see how sonar affects them, they said boat shadows people don't talk about, where if you drop down on your place a little too close to it, they can feel that just as bad as the sonar.
Yeah, I think that that's more affected for bass.
Okay.
I have seen, especially in the summertime, when these fish hold on structures such as brush piles, or if they're on, you know, a rock pile or tires or a ledge where it's fairly shallow, those fish, like, they may move, but they're going to go right back. I will go over brush piles in the middle of the summer, and people are like, is it going to spook the fish? I guarantee you 10 times out of 10, those fish are going to load right back up and you're still going to catch them. I don't see a big issue going over those brush piles. Even if it's in 6 foot of water, those fish may scatter a little bit, but they're going to go back, right? A lot of these fish, especially in the summertime, everyone thinks it's hot. I got to go deep. Well, if you think about it, the boat traffic is a really big deal. So in a way, yes, the boat does make a big deal. Mm-hmm. That bait's not going to be out in that, in open water, because they're just going to be blown around by that, all the boat traffic out there. They're going to be at the mouths of these creeks. They're going to be a little bit deeper. They're going to be in the way back of a creek in a brush pile that's going to be 4 to 6 foot of water, because you don't got to worry about the boat traffic. That bait's going to be back there. If the bait's going to be back there, you're going to find your crappie back there, especially if they're going to be holding on structure.
Wow. Interesting, guys. I mean, absolute knowledge drop. Again, if you want to come on out to the show today, we're going to be here all day. Let me check to make sure I got another question here. We got one more interesting one up here from JP, which is, how is this weather going to affect bass and crappie going into February?
Yeah, to be honest with you, the way this fall and winter has been a joke, to be honest with you. It's been weird. I hadn't seen this cold hit as early as October. I had some tricks going into October, and it got in the 30s overnight. And that's not normal in the 5.5 years I've been down here. I normally don't see that weather hit until late November, December. So the fact that it's kind of been wishy-washy, these fish are committed to these winter patterns. They're not going to leave. They're going to be staying where they are right now. They're not going to be far, or they're not going to leave at all. So with this cold weather, you get out there right now, and there's not going to be as much pressure because people don't want to be out there when it's going to be this cold, and you know, the roads and how it's going to be. So if they have a little bit of a break in pressure, then you can get out there and absolutely whack them, especially when you start to get that warming trend a little bit. You get that warmer day. That's all it is, and that's all it can take to be able to really get into them. So my expectation is, as the month goes on, they're going to stay settled down. They're not going to move. And as those water temps start to rise and we get better, higher air temperatures, they're going to start thinking about moving. But they're not going to start thinking about moving until we start to get that more consistent warming trend. Same thing with that winter pattern. They're not going to move to those winter spots until we get that cooler weather. When we had that cooler weather hit this past fall, I saw people fishing, the bridges as if it's the middle of winter, or they're fishing deep because that's where they think it's going to go when it gets cold. I was still fishing summertime stuff in the middle of November and absolutely wrecking them because they're not going to just one spell, two spells are going to make them leave their summer patterns overnight and go to winter patterns.
It's interesting, and I see you guys' questions. I'll get to them in a minute, but I had Tyler on from High Pole Guide at Lake Anna. He said it's interesting. It's like fall here seemed to go into December, where if you just went on the calendar, you'd be fooled because the weather conditions didn't line up with what the calendar said. And I feel like that's true based on everyone I've talked to.
Like I said, I was fishing summertime. I'll just tell you right now, I fished summertime brush piles in the middle of November. Those water temps will start to drop big time, and I'm still catching fish in 6 to 8 foot of water.
That's crazy.
Wow. So a lot of that, though, is understanding how are they positioned. And it's gonna depend on where you're at on the lake, too. You could be at the north end of the lake where that starts to cool down, and you see those fish starting to leave those areas, where you're at the southern end of the lake, and all of a sudden they're still hanging out. They're still in a completely different pattern, right? As you get in the springtime, your north-facing parts of the water are going to be your, north end of the lake is going to be your warmest part of your body of water. The south end of the lake is going to be your coolest part of your body of water. So they're going to be in different stages depending on how big your lakes are, ponds, wherever, depending on the time of year. But you absolutely can be fooled. If you look at the calendar, it's like, oh man, they're going to be absolutely loaded up at the beginning of December on these bridges. It didn't really happen until later part of December for them to really set up right. So a lot of that, it's all weather dependent. That's the number one thing I tell everyone. Look at the weather, see how consistent or inconsistent it is. And that's going to be a determining factor of how that, how those fish set up. That north wind we got the other day when I was on that trip was the number one biggest factor. We had a south-southwest wind a few days prior. Now, that's when we had that little, it was prefrontal. Those fish wanted to chew, and they were absolutely eating. That north wind hit, and they started to lock down a little bit. They didn't want to move. I was scoping. You could drop that jig right on top of their head. It didn't matter what you were doing. You had to really work hard to get those fish to commit.
Interesting. So we got a couple more questions here. I'm trying to stay on top of them as best I can. I think this is more of a statement, but Bruce says, I like throwing small beetle spins with curly-tailed grubs for crappie when searching, and a curly-tailed jig under a bobber when over brush piles and around pads or laydowns. And then we have Slime Time Fishing and Reel Service, who says 2024 was the toughest season I've had so far. And I'm going to add on to his thing. Where do you think 2025 is going to stack up with this cold? Do you think it's going to help the fishing or hurt the fishing for the year?
My expectation is that because it's been so cold, they're not as pressured as there used to be. So now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of boats on the lake still. Yeah. But they're not as many, like I said, there was 40 boats at Ebenezer 2 years ago.
That's
there
crazy.
Was thousands of crappie. You could drop your jig down there and you were instantly getting bit. Like it wasn't hard to go catch 100 fish in the middle of December through mid-January, end of January. Right now though, because the weather's been so inconsistent, they're not going to be as grouped up as tight as we want to be seeing them like they did 2 years ago. But I think 2025 is going to be like any other year. I'm not expecting a really big change. Even though the weather's been inconsistent, these fish still have to eat. They're still going to spawn. They're still going to leave these areas. They're still going to set up in the winter. It's not going to change greatly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is fascinating how the pressure has changed. But what's neat about this area, it kind of reminds me of Fredericksburg, Virginia, where when you have so many lakes, it feels like they can't all get equally pressured. You'll have a social media post go viral or a tournament, and then that one area will get beat to hell. But then what happens as because of that is all these other places have a chance to heal and get a little bit better, which it seems like that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see at least the PBC with Doug running that. They're going to lay off Jordan a little bit for the tournament, this upcoming season, because the majority of the tournaments were on Jordan, and that lake needs a break big time. We've seen those weights drop for the bass fishing tournaments. Don't get me wrong, there's still some very good bags being consistently weighed in, but not like it was over the years, right? So I'm excited to see really what that does, and what that's going to do is it's going to give Jordan a little time to heal for a whole year, at least for the tournament series. I'm excited to see what it does next year and what next year will look like in 2026, and seeing if those weights go up at all on a more consistent basis.
That's awesome. All right, guys, we have one more question here. Again, if you ask your question on Instagram, I can't share it. StreamYard won't let me do that. They'll only let me share questions on the screen on Facebook and YouTube. The question from Mikey is there any tidal water crappie fishing in North Carolina?
Not around here. No. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't spend a whole lot of time tidal. I spend a lot of time, around here in the Raleigh-Durham area. Eventually, the goal is to get out High Rock, be able to get towards the coast, and offer, the inshore saltwater for reds and trout.
That's hot too. Yeah.
I did that for the first time this past fall, and that's a blast. A whole new learning experience for me. Because now that I got a center console, I had a bass boat before. When I got laid off, I had to make a decision. I can only take 2 people on my bass boat and be able to get the center console. I'm able to take up to 4. So that's a really big deal. And now I can get on that inshore bite. So, the Chowan and whatnot, I'm sure is an area where you're gonna be able to get on them, them there. But in terms of knowledge for the coastal crappie, for me personally, that's not something I really get into, as heavy. But I'm sure you absolutely can get out there as long as you're up far enough and it's not going to fluctuate too much.
What is your setup? You said center console. What brand?
Yep. So I got a 2025 Avid 21 mag.
Okay.
So that has really created a lot of big opportunity to be able to take up to 4. My captain's license is good for up to 6, but I want people to be comfortable in the future. I'll eventually get a bigger center console, especially when I get in the salt, the salt side of things, be able to do offshore and stuff. That's hopefully the future dream anyway.
Awesome stuff. So if people want to find you here at the Expo, what booth are you? And then also, if they want to book a trip with you, do you have an online presence? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so booth number 84 here at the Raleigh Fishing Expo. Stop on by. We've got a couple giveaways. You can win a complete free guided trip with me and a raffle. And then we have a giant a jar of the Badass Bait Zipper minnows that you can win as well. There's a lot of them in there, so they can swing on by. You can go to Farwell Fishing, FARWELL Fishing.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Facebook is a really good source if people are looking for information. Go on Facebook, follow my page, because a lot of times when I'm out on trips, I'm giving that information in terms of what I'm doing, where I'm seeing them, the patterns I'm seeing them in, to be able to help out, not just, hey, we're catching them, book a trip to find out. I try to be informational. So you can book it here, or you can book it online. Go to book your trip at the top of my page. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. They can message me. I'm very responsive and happy to help any way I can.
Kyle, I really appreciate you coming on this show. You guys, it sounds like a lot of fun. Bass fishing, crappie fishing in the area. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking a 20-minute break so we can get our next guest on the show. Come on down to the show. We're going to be here all day. Or if not, book a trip with him online. We're going to see you in about
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Alrighty, guys, we are back here at the Raleigh Fishing Expo. We are on day 2 this Saturday. We have our next guest right here. Sir, and guys, again, just for people that don't know, we are here live at the Raleigh Fishing Expo for day number 2. The weather, it was a little bit of an issue, but we're here, we're going, and we got our next guest right here. Sir, just tell everyone at home what booth you are and your name and what you're doing here.
Tim Askew with Salty Bay Baits, and you can't miss us. We've got the largest booth here, and as soon as you come in the main door, we're right in front of you. So we've been here, I think 30 years we've been doing these shows, and we're a custom lure maker.
So, I mean, how did you get into this? Like,
I started, I guess, as a teenager, tournament bass fishing and local stuff, you know, like clubs and stuff like that, and just enjoyed it so much. And then I think like 1999, some elderly friends of mine started Deep Creek Lures, and I kind of helped them design some baits and helped them push them. And then Gary Ballard, that owns Deep Creek now and Salty Bay Baits and Captain Gary's Marine Care Products, he kind of brought me on board to continue to help promote our baits and design them. And we've got some exciting products, and we've got, you know, a new product this week to debut here that we came out with yesterday. So we're excited. We've been doing this a long time. We'll be in Richmond next week.
Cool. So yeah, I'll see you next week. And if you guys don't know, there is a show next week up at the Richmond Expo. I think it's in Doswell. And before we get the big reveal of the new bait, just a little teasing we'll get into. Are you a local for this area? Just because you have a saltwater niche here. So where are you located?
Well, our company is in Dunn, North Carolina.
Okay.
The primarily eastern North Carolina is where speckled trout is what we kind of specialize in for us, the Salty Bay side and flounder. So we in drum, you know, puppy drum. We have a great time. We run the largest inshore trail. It's called Eastern Carolina Inshore.
I didn't know that.
Club.
Oh, cool.
Yep, that's out of Belhaven, North Carolina. We do a lot to raise money for kids to help at Christmas and families throughout the year. And we also, 2 years ago with the town of Belhaven, we formed a 2-day festival, trout tournament and festival, and we raise money to help kids go to trade school. So we do a lot. It's not just fishing and paying back money in tournaments. It's kind of we kind of adopted the phrase fishing for a purpose.
That's cool.
So it's been a great marriage with the tournament trail, with our baits and everything that we do. Plus, you know, we get to give back. So it's been a great thing.
How big, or how much has inshore tournament fishing gotten bigger over the years? Is it really growing right now?
Yes,
or?
it's you know, it started out to be just some local stuff, and you had a couple little trails out there that, you know, they may have 15, 20 boats. The last, I guess, 5 years, we normally run between 35 and 42 boats on ours. The festival, we capped it at 60 because it was such a big deal, but it's gotten really big, and people really love speckled trout. You know, speckled trout is a beautiful fish, fun to catch, and you can take somebody out that really doesn't fish a lot or have a lot of knowledge in fishing, and usually within an hour, you can really get them where they can start catching some trout and have a good time. And it's a good thing to take kids.
How do these tournaments work? Is it I know I do boat tournaments and kayak tournaments, so I know about catch, photo, release. Is this a weigh-in event? How does all this work?
We right now, you know, you can keep 4 per person per day.
Okay.
So we weigh in 4 per team. You can have 2 to 3 adults, and you can have as many kids as you want. We don't charge the kids anything, but we always have great prizes to give back to the kids. They have their own little division, but they're also part of the team. So that's worked really well, and Salty Bay Baits has been a very strong supporter of doing that, giving back to the kids. Salty Bay's been really good about when I ask them for something, you know, to help with that, they jump right on and say, "What do you need?"
Oh,
so
cool.
It's been a great marriage all the way around.
How would you rank the popularity of the speck, the redfish, and the flounder in the area?
Well, you can't keep any flounder, so that's kind of really cut that out.
Interesting.
Reds, I think you can keep 1 per person per day or something. Speckled trout, you can keep 4 per person. When COVID came and people couldn't go anywhere, do anything, a lot of people started fishing. And then when they cut out the other species you couldn't keep, so now everybody's speckled trout fishing. And we've got the best fishery in eastern North Carolina, probably anywhere down around the Belhaven area. And it's very popular. And usually you can go out, there's days you go out and get skunk, but most time you can catch a few. So it's very populated, it's very fun to go and do. It's gotten really big as far as people just fun fishing, recreational fishing, because it's about the only species you can keep now. So everybody's speckled trout fishing.
I'm on the Maryland Black Bass Advisory Board, and we multitude of times have conversations with the Chesapeake Bay watershed and how the striped bass population in the bay, it's evolving, it's changing, it's not as prevalent as it was, but what's taking its place is the speckle fishing, the red fishing in the Chesapeake Bay is at numbers that have never been in. Like when I was a kid, it was just bluefish and striper in the bay, and now there's so many communities like of the speck and the drum. It's insane. Do you see those populations just growing and pushing north as time goes on?
Yeah, I do. And like I said, I think, and people have their different views on it, especially when you start talking, some of the political people or whatever. We've got the best speckled trout fishery, and in my opinion, we've got the best flounder population. Wow. Even though some argue, no, we don't. I would just about bet you any amount of money that any day you wanted to go, we can go catch all the flounder we want.
That's crazy.
But just in instance, a buddy of mine about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he caught one 9.5 pounds. Took pictures of it. We weighed it with our scale and released it. But it's no problem finding them. Now whether it's that way up in Virginia or whether it's that way down towards South Carolina or whatever, I don't know because I don't fish there. But I know in eastern North Carolina there's plenty of fish. And I'm almost 60 years old, and I've speckled trout fish ever since I was a little boy, and I've never seen the population like it is right now.
Wow, guys. So I think we've we've teased it enough here. Which one would you like to show off first?
Well, I want to show our new. This is our new 4-inch swim bait, paddle tail swim bait, and I didn't know you had the camera. I had to run back and get them a while ago, but this is a new bait that we came out with.
Off to the fancy brand new camera.
Yeah, it's an awesome bait. It's got a lot of action. At Salty Bay Baits, we don't melt down used plastic and remount them. Everything's made out of virgin plastic, so it's really soft and it has a lot of action. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves in, is making it as realistic as possible. And when you remount plastic, remelt it down, it gets harder and harder. So we won't use it. What we do, if we make a run and it doesn't come out right, there's some defects in it or the color's not quite right, we put them in a box. And then as we run across, Boy Scouts or any kind of youth group that wants to get into fishing or likes or whatever, we just donate it to them. That's a way of us giving back also with Salty Bay Baits on what we do with that. So that's kind of what we do. But I tell people also that if you want to buy a pack of baits that's going to last you all year long and you won't have to buy another pack, you probably don't want ours because they're realistic, they're soft. You catch 4 or 5 good-sized trout, you're going to have to put another bait on.
Is the softness, for people that don't know that are listening in, is soft important for soft plastic baits like that versus more of a rigid plastic?
I believe so, yes, because it gives it more action. And there's times where you just want your bait to sit on the bottom because the trout are very lethargic and they won't bite. So the longer it sits there, and if you're letting the current of the water kind of move the tail of it, you have a better chance of a hookup ratio in catching fish. So we believe that the action and the softness of the bait really makes a big difference.
That's really, really cool. So we do have, I'm sorry guys, I've been not paying attention to the comment section here. We got Bald Wayne on Instagram that says, what would you throw that on? So I'm assuming he means, what is your setup for throwing that bait?
Me personally, I use one of our 1/4 ounce jig heads, and I just go through the nose through the center and come out the top. And you can pop it or you can slow swim it. Either way, there's no wrong way to fish. It's whatever's working that day. But that's how I use it. You can put it with an underspin. We have some pre-rig stuff with it's got a little small willow leaf underspin on it, where you can slow roll it, especially as it starts to get into the late spring, early summer months when the fish are moving out to the bigger water and get on these wind-blown points and stuff. So there's really any way you wanted to rig it. I've actually fixed it on almost like a drop shot, like the bass guys use, so that the bait is suspended up, 6-8 inches off the bottom, and the weight's of course on the bottom, and it just sits there and the water just kind of moves it around. So there is no wrong way. Personally, I like it on the 1/4 ounce jig head, so that I can pop it up and down, or I can twitch it and make it move, or I can slow swim it. That's my preference.
Interesting. And then what is the next thing you'd like to show the world? Yeah,
this is we debuted these last year. These are our wood baits. This is my design. It took me almost 2 years to design that bait and to get it to swim right, get it weighted right. It's wood. We make them right in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and then they're shipped up to Dunn and Natalie. We have one girl that paints all of our, and this is one of our hard plastic Dazzle Shad XLs. She does all of our painting just by herself, and I don't know how she keeps up.
For people that are a novice, is this a topwater bait? Is this a subsurface bait for people that don't know?
No, that is a slow sinking. Everything we have except for our top water baits, of course, is slow sinking. In the trout world, everybody wants a slow sinking bait that go down, and they're pretty much called twitch baits. So once they go down, you can just move your wrist a little bit and twitch them, stop, twitch them, stop. And then we have our peanut, which has been last couple of years, our top water peanut that we have has been exceptional. It's been a great seller for us. And of course, they're all custom painted, and they're all custom baits. So it's been really good.
Do you throw that on fluorocarbon, monofilament? How do you like to throw that?
I personally, and a lot of our guys, they use a braid, and I personally use Cortland line.
Really?
Yeah, I like the Cortland braid. I just find that it casts a little farther. It doesn't wind knot as fast. If you get a day that the wind's blowing 15, 20 miles per hour, you can get a wind knot really easy. And I just don't get wind knots with the Cortland line.
What is the relationship with saltwater anglers and the different types of line, generally speaking? Because in the bass world, all they talk about is fluorocarbon and mono's the devil. Is it the same general principles in saltwater, or do they have more of an affiliate to braid and mono?
Yeah, well, some guys use fluoro.
Okay.
I used to, and then I switched to braid because, you get on top of oyster beds, and you get around a little more structure sometimes, heavy grass. And the braid just holds up a little bit better, and I like the feel of braid.
Interesting.
So
That's
and then
cool.
Speckled trout's got teeth. So if you're using fluoro, it's very easy for one of them. If you don't hook him exactly right, or he fights you pretty good or whatever, he can actually cut your line. And I found that braid kind of resists that a little bit.
Yeah, because that was the thing I was thinking is we had a gentleman on yesterday from North Carolina Wildlife talking about building reefs and the oyster beds and stuff, and that's sharp as hell. So it's like, is that an issue when you are in some of these places where braid, if it touches that, boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
And you have to counter it.
And braid is a little bit more resistant to that. And of course, if I get on top of an oyster bed and I get hung up and I pop it loose or whatever, or if I catch a fish, I always take and, of course, run my hand down the line just to check it to make sure that it's not frayed anywhere. If it is, I'll retie. I'm just a big braid supporter. Awesome. Did I catch as many fish when I use fluoro? Yeah, probably so. But when I switched over to braid, I've been pleased.
Awesome stuff. Guys, make sure you get your questions here. Hit that like button. It really helps push this in the algorithm. Share it out on Facebook, too. That helps. There's another couple of baits here that I want to make sure we get to.
Yeah, we got, and I'll get over to that one in a minute, but we own shrimp pasta. This is the original shrimp pasta, beautiful, beautiful shrimp. And normally I'll take that and put underneath a Red Line Rigs popping cork. I think Austin's right over here behind us. I used to hate a popping cork, and several years ago I met Austin, and he gave me a couple to go and try. And
That's cool.
You know, they would bend, they would get tangled up, and since I've been using his, I don't have that problem anymore. But I'll put that shrimp pasta underneath a popping cork, and that's a good way to find fish.
Did you come up with that antenna?
No, that I cannot remember the guy's name who was the original inventor and owner of shrimp pasta, but he was a very good friend of Gary Ballard, and when he got to the end of his life and was doing, he asked Gary would he keep it going. So we have. And you know, hey, you don't get much more realistic than that, right?
No, you don't.
So and that's things that we try to do at Salty Bay. We try to be as realistic as possible. So it's really a great bait. And you know, I actually brought some of the bodies here with us for the Salty Bay. This is a different shrimp, of course, than some of the other ones we have, but that's the same body that you showed a while ago. That's our Salty Bay shrimp. Got a lot of action, virgin plastic, you know, lifelike.
That's where it's really
and,
soft. That's
you know,
fascinating.
if I was a fish, I'd bite it, right? So,
Really?
but that, and then, and of course, we got our. This is a Mardi Gras cigar minnow. This is really my go-to bait is our cigar minnow. And it's just like a fluke, but it's a little bit fatter, a little bit longer.
Oh, that is fatter.
And you can smell the scent on there. But it's that's my go-to bait is the cigar minnow. 90% of the time, I'm going to start out with that. I
like
call
that.
it a good search bait.
5 inches? 4 inches?
Yeah, it's about a little over 4.
4?
Yeah, a little over 4. But that's my go-to bait. Like I said, I can take that and cover a lot of water. It's a good search bait. And then, you know, if I find them and I catch 4 or 5, you know, 17, 18 inch, I may switch over, you know, to our hard baits or whatever, and then see if I can up my scale on the size of them. So we've got, it's just too many things that we have really to bring everything over here, but that's just some of the things I wanted to share with you today, and one that we're really excited about is our new swim bait, and of course our wood series. They've been very popular. We came out with them last year. Just about haven't been able to keep up with making them. And we've got a new design so if you come back next year and I'll have a new one here, a wood bait that we can debut with you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then we've got, and I don't know much about offshore. Now Gary is the offshore king. You know, he knows all about. He's even got a reef named out there that's the Gary Ballard Reef.
Oh, that's cool.
But this is a cobia bait. I have no clue how to fish that. But I wanted to show it because I think it's pretty cool looking, and I know a lot of people like to offshore fish. And
guys, for
cobia,
comparison, here's my sparkling water.
Yeah.
Just to give you a visual comparison here. Look at that. $20, anyone can catch a bass off of this, flipping it under a dock.
Yeah.
That thing is impressive.
Yeah. You know, I would like to say that I was on trout big enough to use that, but I don't think that would work. But I was fortunate enough, we had our championship tournament December the 14th down in Belhaven with ECIC, and I was fortunate enough, I caught a 28-inch, 7.45 pound speckled trout.
Wow.
That's the biggest one that I've ever caught. So I was very, very, very excited about that. And then, but over the last couple of weeks, some of the guys have, I think last Monday, a guy caught one that was 31 inches, and he weighed, I think it was 11 pounds, 11 ounces. So
that's crazy.
So there's some nice trout in the Pamlico and Pungo, you know, fishing area. But I got a buddy that lives up in Virginia Beach, and he catches some nice speckled trout up there too. He's actually on our pro staff, and he catches some nice reds and catch some nice speckled trout up there with our baits too, and he sends me pictures all the time. So I think they're about anywhere you want to go as long as you spend some time on the water.
Something I wanted to pick your brain about that you alluded to earlier was the popping cork. How did that become a thing? It's so unique, but it works.
It works. I don't know. I don't know how it came about. And like I said a few minutes ago, I used to hate a popping cork because every one I ever bought, they would tangle up, they would bend, and I couldn't throw them far, and I'd get really frustrated with them. And then I met Austin at Red Line Rig several years ago, and he said, "Here, man, just go try And now I've got one tied on all the time. And so if I'm in a spot where I'm just not catching anything, especially in the summer months, I'm gonna take that popping cork with one-eye shrimp, and I'm gonna throw it. And it sounds good coming through the water. You know, it's got that pop and that rattle, and it calls them, I think. And then you'll start catching them. And then, you know, once you catch a few, it's kind of like the cigar, man. And once you catch a few on the popping cork, maybe you can switch to something else and catch a little, you know, upgrade your catch or whatever. But fishing is all about figuring them out. That's why I'm not a big proponent, and the guys that want it, that's fine. You know, they can spend the money the way they want to on this forward-facing sonar and all of that. I'm kind of old school. I like to go out and figure them out myself. Where are they? What do they want today? To me, that's part of fishing. That's part of the fun, is trying to figure them out one-on-one. Look at a TV all day long and catch fish just ain't for me. But, you know, some guys love it and they perfected it, and that's fine if that's what they want to do.
No, 100%. We got our last question here, and then as always, guys, throughout the day, I'll be picking questions to win a prize. Brandon Solis here won a prize. He asked, what is the best time to come down and trout fish?
You really, you know, about mid to late September, right on through April. It's probably the prime time, but you know, speckled trout, we catch them all year. Once you know, mid-April, late April gets here, you want to start moving out to the rivers, to the bays, out to the bigger water, and find them. But you know, there's resident trout that stay in the creeks year round. It's few and far in between in catching them. But my dad, they used to call him the Trout King down that way, and he had a couple of places that he fished. And in the creeks, and he fished all year long, and he always seemed to come out with his limit, you know. I haven't been that lucky. I had to go find them, you know, but things have changed too over the years. But there's plenty of trout. Belhaven's a beautiful area. Salty Bay baits, we spend a lot of time, a lot of effort in designing. We just don't say, oh, that looks good, and we make it. We test them. And we spend a lot of time trying to design something that people can go and catch fish with.
Sir, I really appreciate it. This was a fun conversation. I personally learned a lot more about the saltwater fishing opportunities here. If people, for some reason, just can't make it today, how can they get a hold of you to get some of these awesome baits?
You can go online, and I tell everybody, go to deepcreeklures.com. And at the top in the little slide bar, you can go to our Captain Gary's Marine Care products, which is products that clean and take care of your boat. And then you keep scrolling over, you can see Salty Bay baits. You just click on that, and it'll take you to our inventory, and you can see, and you can order, and we'll ship them right to you.
Awesome stuff. Guys, again, please go support all these local vendors. Come check out the Raleigh Expo. We're going to take a quick 10-minute countdown clock before we get to our next guest here. If you guys would like to come in, we're going to be here all day. Tomorrow, they're going to be opening up at 10 instead of 9 because of the weather, but I think the roads are good right now. Come on down and see us. Yep. And we'll talk to you guys.
listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
All righty, everybody. We are back here live from the Raleigh Expo, day number 2 this Saturday. I have the New River legend himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Ethan Stone of New River Outdoor Company. Ethan's been a busy man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No, you are welcome, sir. What's been going on in your life?
Not too much. We had a kind of good end to last guide season. Fall bite was really good after the storm. Fished a little bit in November, December. Had a couple really good days in December. But now with how cold it's been in January, there's ice on the river, and I'm doing these shows all January and excited to get back at it here in about a month or so.
I mean, this guy is absolutely killing it on the New River. If you haven't, you got to go book a trip with him. But you mentioned it, and this has been on the lips of everybody that I've interviewed the past couple of days, is we're finally getting a hardcore winter. What do you think this is going to do in effect with the pre-spawn and the spawn on our rivers?
I think we can't make a good gauge on that yet. I think the weather in February will really determine that. I mean, the days will start getting longer in February. I do think maybe it might be a little later this year, but I mean, the weather can change fast. If it's a warm February, I think it'll put things right back on track. Something I've noticed with the smallmouth on the river is they tend to spawn a similar time every year, no matter what the weather conditions are. I think it has to do with like length of day and the moon phases. But last year was such a warm winter that I expected them to spawn early, and they didn't really, at least on the river.
For the people that aren't aware, what part of the New River are you typically on? Because you have a massive dam that kind of separates the river into 2 different halves.
Yep, so I'm downstream of the dam, from the Claytor Lake Dam to the West Virginia border. That's about 70 miles of river that we rotate through, but it's a big river for big fish. I mean, it's a good fishery.
Does that typically, because of the dam, does that make the water temperatures and or water levels more consistent?
It does. Our water comes from the bottom of Claytor Lake, so that water is less affected by, temperature swings. But, I mean, right now it's just cold up there. So, yeah, we have some cold water right now, but that'll be good. I think the fish will be hungry and ready to feed up as soon as this weather breaks.
So we've got a question on Instagram. What are the average water temperatures in February on the New River? That was 81 Fletch. Thank you, boss.
So I would say we usually come into February right around 40. Might be a little lower this year. Might be 37, 38. By the end of February, we're usually like flirting with 45. Usually it's kind of 42, 43 in the mornings, getting up to 45 by the beginning of March. But yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I remember we were catching them good in 37. So if you kind of know where they are in the winter, they will, I don't think, there's not much difference between 37, 38 and 40 or 41, really. It's just cold at that point, but yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. What kind of water levels are you hoping to see for them to start spawning? Is there a water level or is it a temperature that they're looking for?
I think it's more like timing, like I said, kind of like photo period, length of day. But if the water's high during the spawn, they will pack down more than if the water's low during the spawn, because they want to be in as little current as possible during the spawn. So if the water's high, they'll really congregate in the eddies, whereas if it's lower, they can kind of spread out all throughout the river.
Okay. For the seminars that you're having now, what is the question that you feel like is asked at each one, or the most?
Something I get asked a lot is kind of just about baits. I mean, people hear smallmouth, especially people that are accustomed to largemouth fishing, and they're wondering if I'm throwing like 2-inch grubs and beetle spins and stuff, but kind of the thing I like about the New River is like, it is like a power fishing dream. I mean, it is like I mean, in the spring, in the fall, and during high water, you could have more success power fishing on the New River than probably anywhere in Virginia, any lake or river in Virginia. I mean, these smallmouth are aggressive, they're big, and I mean, if you want to catch a 3, 4, 5, 6 pound smallmouth, you got to throw the same things that you'd throw to catch a big largemouth, you know. So, you know, I'm throwing a lot of jerk baits, a lot of jigs. I love throwing a football jig, and yeah.
Would you say the New River and the Susky are kind of the same when it comes to power fishing smallmouth compared to a Shenandoah River, which is the tube and the Ned rig, dink and dunking kind of thing?
I would say so. You know, it all depends on water level.
Yeah.
I would say the Susquehanna has a bigger bait fish base than the New. So I see a lot of people on the Susquehanna throwing kind of bait fish presentations, whereas on the New I throw a ton of like crawfish imitations, like a jig, like a red crankbait. If you saw my guide box of crankbaits, people just see it and laugh because it's like 4/5 red, and then there's this tiny little corner of like natural colors.
Jeez.
Yeah, but yeah.
Is there a specific red that you like or that you see with the crayfish?
Not really. They're kind of orange in the colder months, and they get kind of green pumpkin in the summer. Honestly, this color, this is a frit side, but this color of crankbait is almost exactly how they look in the summer. That's like the color of a kind of a summer crawfish on the New River. But
you guys see the lip marks on that from the Sony? Oh my God, that thing's been nailed. Good Lord. Do you change? Because I feel like smallmouth mouths get really hard in cold weather. Do you like to flip out different types of hooks?
yeah, I put owner stingers on like all of my baits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Versus like a triple grip kind of style hook?
Yeah, I mean, it's just what you got confidence in.
Fair
Those
enough,
stingers, I mean, they are sharp, and yeah. Smallmouth, especially this time of year, can really just get kind of where they nip at it. And those stingers tend to get them pretty good.
Mm-hmm. How long are the floats you do? If you guys don't know, the reason he's in such great shape is you're paddling like miles.
Yeah, it depends. There's stretches I do that are only like 3 miles in a day.
Oh, wow.
And there's stretches I do that are all the way up to 10 miles. It just kind of depends on the type of fishing I think we're going to need to do. If I think it's going to be like a beat the bank, go down the bank power fishing day, I'll choose a longer stretch. If I think it's going to be the kind of day where we're going to need to sit down on top of some fish, I'll choose a shorter stretch.
When you say 3 miles in a day, it seems to the novice pretty slow going necessarily. Is that because of the fishing is so good you're stopping, or the water is so treacherous? Because if people don't know, the New River is not like the lazy Shenandoah. It can get gnarly in some sections.
Yeah, so those areas that are I only go about 3 miles, 4 miles in a day, they're really wide, like quarter mile, half a mile wide, and we're zigzagging across the river, hitting spots everywhere. So yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You still do a ton of fishing. It's just not straight down the bank. It's all across the river.
Gotcha. We got another question. I know, I just saw it. Hold on. Instagram question that we got right here is, what size is your raft?
My raft is 15 and a half feet. It's big and wide. But yeah, I mean, it's like way bigger than a lot of the john boats I see fishing out on the river. It's quite the rig. Yeah.
That's insane. If people wanted to find you, they wanted to book a trip with you, where do they go?
Next week we'll be at the Richmond show, but we're on Facebook and Instagram, New River Outdoor Company, or check out our website, newriveroutdoorco.com. Give us a shout. It's a fun trip. We take care of you. We have 5-star cabins, and cabins isn't even a great word for them. They're like houses that you can stay in. So we're offering some packages. We always offer packages, but we're offering specials at the show where you could stay a few days in the cabin, fish a few days. So yeah, we'd love to take you out on a big smallmouth.
I want to also hit on that too, cabin rental. If you just wanted to do a getaway with your girlfriend to go hiking or something like that, just with the cabins, what would be the best time of year to just explore the New River area just for like a hiking adventure type of deal?
Probably the summer. I mean, I'm talking about how cold it is now, but the summer is so nice down there, low humidity. It's usually about 10 degrees cooler where I'm at than over like in Richmond or Northern Virginia.
Wow.
So it's just real nice, nice place to be that time of year.
Awesome stuff, guys. Ethan Stone, New River Guide Services. If you want more of an in-depth, he's been on the channel a multitude of times doing massive, long conversations. Go check him out. But I'm going to let this guy go take a break because he's been working his butt off. We have another interview in about 20 minutes, so we're going to take a quick little commercial break. I just posted, because I've had Ethan on the show before, I just put all the social media feed back on the Raleigh Facebook page, my YouTube, and my Instagram, so you guys can quickly go find that link if you'd like to. We'll see you guys in about 20
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never disappointed out here, because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure. Because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Raleigh Fishing Expo. Randy, just to let you know, if you have any blurry, I'm sorry about that. It is because of the internet here. We're doing the best we can. We have spotty internet all week. That is why we are actually just going straight to interviews in the booth. This is the best internet. We can't do walkthroughs because of how the internet is. So try to refresh your YouTube channel, and we'll do the best. YouTube will be better than Facebook for some reason. I don't know why. It's just how they run their algorithm. So you can check that out. But without a moment ado, we have our next guest right here. Sir, please tell everyone at home your booth name and what you're doing here.
Guys, I am Mitch Carter. I am head guide and head operations at Southern Appalachian Anglers Guide Service, and we're out of Western North Carolina and East Tennessee. We cover pretty much a swath of land from as far north as Boone, about as far south as the Smokies, down in Cherokee and around that area. And we also run in do our bigger tailwaters over in eastern Tennessee as well for both smallmouth, trout, and muskie, believe it or not.
How did you get into this?
So, I got into this basically it was a complete passion project of mine. I just got out of high school. I was completely infatuated with fly fishing. It's like all I wanted to do. I was working another job right out of school. And, you know, when I was living by myself right out of school, at least 4 or 5 nights a week, I would go fish when I didn't have to do laundry. And then both days of every weekend, I would be out on the water. Eventually, my father-in-law got me a guide trip for a wedding present. I got married at 19. I got married very young to my wife. And as a wedding present, he got me a guided float trip.
Oh, cool.
With a gentleman that he'd been out with for like 20 years now over in East Tennessee on the Watauga River. And when I found out you could make money fly fishing and showing people how to do it, that's all I wanted to do. So basically, I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth and was just ready to be blue collar and fly fish for the rest of my life. And then when I found out that you could be a guide and make a living doing it, that's what I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life towards, and I've done it ever since. That
is really cool.
Yeah.
And then guys, comment down below. How's the audio? How's the picture? This thing will be re-uploaded with a little bit better picture quality. I'm also going to just try to get some Starlink too, just for when we get into these situations. Appalachia is a really interesting name. If you could just reiterate to people, like, do you have strong roots in the Appalachian area?
So, a lot of my family from Appalachia actually comes from southern West Virginia. On my father's side, a lot of coal miners, and my grandfather actually gives me kind of my earliest memories of fly fishing and river smallmouth fishing and just really all kinds of fishing in general. My roots are deeper in the West Virginia side of Appalachia, even though I've lived in North Carolina my entire life. I'm first generation where I actually live out and call home and have called home my whole life. And on my mother's side, it's actually full Polish, believe it or not. But without getting into all the family background and all that stuff, they more or less liked West North Carolina enough to move there. Had myself and my younger brother. and I've lived there ever since, called it home, and still very passionately try to protect it. And one of my favorite things I like to tell people about guiding is, when we would have family down from New Jersey on my mom's side, or from South Carolina, or from West Virginia, I always loved showing them our area, and just the natural beauty of it and everything else. And I say all that kind of long way around the barn to get around to saying that, yeah, I don't have deep roots there, but that's definitely what I call home. And as far as Appalachian goes, I am Appalachian, very proudly.
It's so interesting because when we think of Appalachia, and I could be guilty of this, you think of just West Virginia, generally speaking. My mom's side of the family is from West Virginia, but when you think of the Appalachian Mountains itself and the culture, it goes from like New York all the way down to Georgia. And with that, you have the rivers and you have the smallmouth and the trout. And a lot of people around here that I've talked to is like they haven't caught a smallmouth before, which is crazy because I grew up on the Shenandoah River, the Upper Potomac. You target smallmouth in North Carolina, which is crazy. What is that kind of like around here?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, just like if someone was like, man, it's crazy that you target smallmouth in the Shenandoah, it's like, that's just what we know.
Yeah.
That the first fish I ever caught was a bluegill, like every kid, but right after that it was river smallmouth. It's all I've known, and of course the trout too. But as far as the river smallmouth are concerned, man, like we have got some absolutely just phenomenal smallmouth fisheries that I think would be a travesty for anyone to miss that wants to catch smallmouth in the Southeast. Yes, the New River, wonderful river. Shenandoah, wonderful river. All those rivers a little bit further north of us are all also very phenomenal. But dude, between North Carolina and East Tennessee, we have got some phenomenal smallmouth fisheries. Just healthy. They set up the correct way with the food forage and everything else, the environment. And they can just grow some big, mean smallmouth, man, and in great numbers as well.
Why is that not known about?
That I don't know. I really don't know. I think, what's kind of happened, I feel like, in the last 30 years, if you just want to talk about like mountain fishing in general, and I'm not saying this as a knock to fly fishing for trout because I love that all the same. But fly fishing for trout, if you think about it, the whole stigma of mountain trout, kind of started with that river runs through it thing, and everyone wants to be in the mountains and catch trout. Nobody thinks about the smallmouth for some reason. When people think about bass fishing, they think about coming down here to Raleigh and going to Lake Wheeler or going to South Carolina to Lake Murray or going anywhere else, and they like to fish the lakes and the reservoirs for, that's what they think about bass fishing.
Yeah.
They think about bass boats. They think about lakes, The river smallmouth thing, I almost feel like it's a very, I wouldn't say strictly Appalachian thing, but it's a very much an Appalachian thing. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people, they're like, well, are there any trout in the Nolichucky or the French Broad? It's like, well, they are, but they're probably not very happy. But what you do have is a whole lot of smallmouth. People go, really? I thought just because it was the mountains, trout were everywhere. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't work like that. But I guess to answer your question, I think why it's not known about is just simply because, the whole narrative of mountain trout kind of almost swallows the narrative for river smallmouth, which, as much as I love trout, I still think river smallmouth's the better game fish, you know what I mean? And a lot of guides I know from where I'm at would certainly agree with that as well, too. So,
for the people that are listening that are not big trout anglers, I know just from at least my experience talking to DWR in Virginia that you have certain areas that are year-round cold water places like the Jackson River out of Mooney. You have other places that are kind of almost seasonal. These areas here that you're talking about from the trout standpoint, are these 12-month fisheries, or are they more of only in the cold weather season that you'll be targeting them?
Well, it really just kind of depends on where you go. See, in the Southeast, it's really a miracle that we have trout in the first place, if you really think about it. North Carolina is so far down south that not only do we have, the hot weather, that it's just a little more hostile of an environment for trout. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad environment for trout, because what puts the trout there in the first place is, the forests, the trees, the mountains. Right there where I'm from Mitchell County, North Carolina, and just the next county over is Mount Mitchell. It's the highest peak, east of the Mississippi. It's 6,684 feet, which if you live out west, that's where you park your car.
Yeah, that's nothing.
But, down in the southeast, that's way up on the mountaintop, and what you have there in Pisgah National Forest is what they call a temperate rainforest.
Really?
But it's considered a temperate rainforest. So, I'm not a science major, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's a very humid climate, and it creates a lot of moisture and a lot of water.
That's crazy.
And to kind of answer your question, it's not just a cold weather thing, because in the summertime what we rely on is a lot of that, precipitation, a lot of that moisture, and a lot of that rain to cool everything down in the summertime. Because if you don't have that rain in the summertime, you're still in the south. It gets pretty hot. But since we have all of our trees and our big, beautiful temperate rainforest, it's able to produce all that moisture, which keeps the water cooler in the summertime and keeps the fish happy. They don't need any help staying cold in the mountains this time of year, right? But, for that, you have to have some source of I would almost say, like auxiliary cold water. You see what I'm saying? Because trout ideally can't live in water over about 55 degrees.
Okay.
So if you're talking about trout, now smallmouth, I've caught smallmouth out of water 70, 72 degrees before. But when you're talking about trout, ideally they can't live in water that's over about 55 degrees. Okay. The only reason that is because I'm not a science guy. I'm trying not to butcher this. I know enough science to get me by for guiding, but, excuse me. But when you have colder water, it's more alkaline. It's able to trap more dissolved oxygen more frequently. Trout or just any salmonoid species need a high concentration of dissolved oxygen. And all of that dissolved oxygen comes from, when you have cold water, and what do you think white water is? All those bubbles. That's a lot of dissolved oxygen, right? So the trout need that dissolved oxygen to survive. The colder the water you have, the more dissolved oxygen you're going to get, basically in a nutshell, without trying to make everybody's head spin over it. Another way that we have, good, healthy, thriving trout populations over in East Tennessee even, what I would consider in the valley, off the mountain and out of that kind of temperate rainforest zone, starting to get more in kind of the rolling hills. So I do a lot of guiding over on the Watauga River and the South Holston Rivers over in East Tennessee. So the Watauga River is over around Elizabethton, and the South Holston River is over around Bluff City, kind of Bristol, that area. And the way that those rivers work are they're what's called tail races or tailwaters. So what's going on there, in a nutshell, for both of them, they both work kind of different, but they achieve the same result. The TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, uses the water generated from the dams on the South Holston Lake and the Watauga Lake to create hydroelectricity. So what happens is when they draw that water out for hydroelectricity, they're drawing it. It's what's called a spill under dam. So if you think about it, all of that, in the summertime, the first 8 feet of that water in your lake, what's called the thermocline, could be like 70 something degrees, could feel like bath water. But they're hundreds of feet deep, so the further down you go, the more that sunlight is insulated. It's not warming up, or the more that the water is insulated from the sunlight, it's not warming it up as much. So when you get to the bottom of that lake, that water's like 38 degrees, even in the middle of the summertime. So when you spill that out from underneath a dam, what do you get for miles down the river? You see what I'm saying? You get that 52, 55 degree, that like right on the money perfect temperature for trout, all year long. And it even stays that way in the wintertime too. Like, I've been out in January when it's like 20 degrees outside fishing in those rivers, but the water's still 50, 52 some, degrees. But even though it's still at the same temperature, it's a perfect temperature for trout. You know what I mean? So those are two ways right there that we're able to maintain good trout populations in the Southeast is simply just taking care of our forests, maintaining that temperate rainforest so that we do get that moisture and that precipitation for our higher elevated trout streams. And then for our lower elevated trout streams, like what we have in East Tennessee, if it wasn't for those dams and those tail races, you wouldn't have much of a trout pop out there at all. So
if people wanted to book a trout trip with you, when would you suggest them trying to book it? What season?
So if you're wanting to wade, float in eastern Tennessee or western North Carolina, whatever kind of trout fishing you're looking to do, my two favorite months to do it are I'll put three in there. April, May, and June are my three favorite months to trout fish back home. It's to me, it's kind of a spring. I've liked the springtime since I was a little kid in the mountains. Everybody likes the fall, and fall's beautiful, and fall can make some good fishing too. But my favorite's always been the spring, just simply because if you think about it this way, everything is fresh in the spring, right? All the bugs that the trout eat are starting to finally hatch out for the year. It's getting the fish's attention. It's getting them up. They're looking for bugs. They're looking for bait fish, eating those bugs sometimes even. They've got their feed bag on, and the weather's beautiful that time of year. Usually high flows still from like the winter time and the rainy season. You get there around April, and it's an absolutely slap perfect time for trout fishing, in my opinion. Anywhere from April to June is, and like I say, as long as we get some rain, it can stay consistent through the summertime. But the spring is definitely my favorite time to get out and fish for them.
Interesting. So when we're pivoting back to smallmouth, when do you think smallmouth fishing will really kick off? And if somebody wanted to book a trip with you just to go for smallmouth, what would the best time be?
So for smallmouth floats, I told a guy this yesterday here at the show. It really kind of depends on what you're looking for. Early in the season and late in the season, it's a good time to kind of maybe not run into as many numbers, but run into some big ones. Fall right there before a lot of the fish back home, what they'll do, or a lot of the smallmouth back home, what they'll do is they kind of go into winter in spots a little bit. Like right now in the dead of winter isn't much for smallmouth back home, at least in western North Carolina. But, March, when they start kind of looking up and feeding again, good time to maybe look for a big one. You might not, again, get as many numbers, but you'll get some nice fish. And then, the more the heat of the summer starts burning on, the better the smallmouth fishing kicks on for me because, in the summertime, you'll get a lot of numbers, but you'll still have some shots at some big ones too. So... And the fall can be good too because again they're putting on they're fixing to go kind of into a wintering stage and they start putting on the feed bag before the winter time. So they start eating like crazy and the big ones start hunkering down. And of course March, all that early season, that's all kind of pre-spawn. So you'll have fish eating looking to feed before spawn too. Just like you do anywhere else. Ethan Stone says the same thing about the new. I think that's just kind of smallmouth or bass fishing 101. So you can still kind of follow that, but all through the summertime, and my favorite time to go for them is April all the way and through October, basically for smallmouth.
Okay.
So,
interesting. And then flyer guys. I'm sorry. Let me shut that up to the screen.
Yeah, there you go.
So no, it's gonna. There you go. Hold it right there. But yeah, absolutely cool. Like again, this is a part of the country that I even think about for smallmouth fishing. Absolutely awesome. Southern Angler, Appalachia. Really, really cool. If people want to book a trip with you again, could you just mention, do you have a website, Facebook page? How can people get a hold of you outside here?
Yeah, so SouthernAppalachianAnglers.com takes you right to our website. We also have a, phone number so people can book online or they can just simply call us and book over the phone. We also have an Instagram at Southern Appalachian Anglers and a Facebook at Southern Appalachian Anglers, and kind of sort of a TikTok, but I'm working on that. So we don't do any dances, but you know.
Sir, thank you so much for coming on.
You bet.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it, guys. Come check him out here at the Expo. Do you have any more expos you're going to be going to?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Do you have any more expos or shows you're going to be going to this year?
No expos or shows this year. We're kicking around the idea of trying to go to Atlanta and do the fly fishing show around Atlanta next year. We kicked around the idea of maybe doing East Tennessee next year, but we're here at the Raleigh show every single year. So,
awesome stuff.
Yep.
Guys, I mean, you can go watch this on YouTube or Facebook. This will be re-uploaded later in the week with better video and, of course, as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and Amazon Music later on in the week. We're going to take a quick commercial break, about 20 minutes, and then we're going to be going on with our very next guest. I'm also going to try to refresh everything and try some experimenting here to make the internet a little bit better, but fingers crossed. We'll see you guys here in a minute. Thank you.
Look at that. Look at that. Crystal clear.
Go sit.
God.
Go sit real quick.
Lord have mercy, Virginia. What do you think?
Yep. Yep. I mean, here it looks crystal clear. I don't know what.
That's true. Let me check.
So now you get this. We're video you checking your phone to
check
see
myself.
how you look.
Yeah. All right, hold on. Fishing the DMV.
You know what it's doing? Part of the problem is the camera is catching people walking by and refocusing.
No, I know. That's normal. Okay, looks good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, so what we are ending up doing is we went ahead and disconnected from the internet here at the complex and went ahead and connected it to our mobile hotspots in hopes that the footage gets a little bit more clear for everybody to see. So far it's not much better. But
it's not better?
It was at first, but now it's not.
Is it because, I think it's because people are, this camera is also catching everything. It's so wide angled.
I really think it's okay.
You don't?
It's a really good camera.
Because right now it looks, on the computer it looks good. So
Yeah, right here it looks clear again. So it's off and on. I think it's gonna stabilize.
Yeah.
All right, you can go ahead and take it down. Tommy will be back on shortly in about 5 to 10 minutes. The next guest that we're bringing on is, hold up, let me tell you. It is the Fly Fishing Club. Not exactly sure what location they're coming from, but we have the president, I believe, coming on to talk about how you can join. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.
righty, everybody. We are back. Sorry about that. We flipped our internet around a little bit to make sure that it looks a little bit better now. I feel like everyone and their brother is on the Wi-Fi here. Richmond will be better, I promise. But we are here with our next guest of the day, Hudson, the fly fishing chapter down here in North Carolina. But, you know, I don't want to speak for him here. Sir, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, I mean, what brings you down here, and where can people find you first off down here at the Raleigh Expo?
Absolutely, man. So we are actually, you know, we're based here, right? We're the Triangle Fly Fishers. We are the local Trout Unlimited and Fly Fishers International organization here in the Triangle. So, you know, we're a free fly fishing club. We meet once a month, and we've got a ton of events. You know, all throughout the months as well, like things like fly tying nights. We have guides come and do speakers. We've got a great event coming up we can talk about in a minute. We're bringing a fly fishing film festival down here this week, which is going to be this month, which is going to be a lot of fun. So we're just here to kind of help spread the love of fishing as a whole, but particularly fly fishing and getting people involved in conservation as well.
How did you get into this?
You know, I guess I'm a story of somebody who I found the club through just the internet, right? Through Google. About 12 years ago. And I joined up, and kind of a funny story, we joined a pig picking that the club was throwing. And they had a casting competition to see, you know, who was the best fly caster in the group. I had never fished before. So I naturally wasn't the best fly caster in the group, I'll tell you that much. I was actually the worst. But that's how the story, I guess, is beautiful in the way that losing the competition actually won me a trip with one of the older members to go out and learn to fly fish, right? So he gave me a few lessons.
Oh, cool.
And I was totally hooked from that moment on. And saw the awesomeness that the club is, right? It's a really great organization that's got that education at the backbone, trying to make sure that we're spreading the sport and teaching people, right? Because let's all face it, you know, everybody's vision of fly fishing is standing out in the trout stream, probably an older guy out there, you know, just enjoying nature. But it's so much more than that, right? And we're really working hard to bring in new young members to the club. You know, and spread the diversity as well, and make sure that we've got, you know, the ability to help carry on the love of this sport, you know, and make sure we're growing it as well. So, but that's my story. I mean, and you know, after serving on the board for several years, they asked me to join as the president, and I was so happy to do it, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
With my channel really covering, you know, the Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia area, and a little bit of North Carolina, Pennsylvania is a revered place for the trout fishing stuff. And I must embarrassingly say, like, I don't know about like the trout fishing in this Appalachian portion of the Carolina. Is it a 24/7, 12-month cold water fishery? Is it seasonal? What do you have here?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's important to talk about the fact that, you know, that vision of fly fishing as being only trout is a little outdated, right? So we can talk about that too.
True.
But you know, when you ask specifically about trout, North Carolina has a ton to offer, right? With the Blue Ridge Mountain, or the you know, all the blue line streams up on the Parkway. You know, we've got Boone and Asheville. You know, all the rivers are up that way, and even into Virginia. And we've got members who travel all over that area. But you know, the trout fishing is top notch, right? Some of the rivers like the Davidson are some of the best trout fisheries in the country, right? So some really excellent large like opportunities for brown trout. But then also, you know, we've got the local, the native brookie, which is, you know, a beautiful smaller fish to go out there and catch in these little, you know, like puddles, right? You know, you wouldn't think it'd be holding fish, and you'll find the most beautiful little wild fish out there, which is really, really a unique experience you can get in North Carolina.
What is people's view of the brown trout in this area? Because I know depending on where you're at, they're looked at as more of an invasive, more of as a prize catch.
I mean, brown trout, you know, they're interesting, right? They're not a trout, right? They're at the end of the day, they're a char, right? I believe that's right.
Yep.
You know, and or no, I'm sorry, that's the brookie. That's a char. They are they're not a local species, right? They've been put in the stream.
Technically invasive, I guess.
It's technically invasive, but you know, they're also a predator, right? That's something that's really unique about them as a fish. So a lot of times your brown trout are going to eat, you know, bigger baits. They're going to eat streamers. We're not. It's not that that little tiny, nymph or that midge that you might think of when you think of fly fishing. You're seeing guys throw, 3-4 inch streamers for them, and they spend all day chasing that one trophy fish. Especially like when we talk about places like the Davidson, that's a world-class brown trout fishery, man. You can land some, 23, 24, 25, there's gonna be some big fish up there on a fly rod, right? And that's just such a cool experience. So I think brown trout bring such a unique thing to the trout fishing in the sense that it's, an opportunity to catch a fish of a lifetime right here in North Carolina.
You mentioned earlier, and this is 100% true, there's a stereotype. When you talk about fly fishing, immediately you have an image in your head. What is then fly fishing then, if we're trying to break away from that stereotype?
So what I think is interesting, and our club is in specific is very interested, very, very different in this situation, is like we've got the mountains here where you can trout fish. We've got the coast down here. We're obviously at the Bass and Saltwater Expo. Saltwater fly fishing is a blast, man. It's its whole own unique world, right? Again, talking about throwing streamers, or if you're talking about little tiny bonefish flies and chasing, in North Carolina in particular, we've got false albacore. That fish swims 40 miles an hour, right? And catching that on a fly rod is just an experience like none other, right? We're located here, in kind of the Piedmont area of North Carolina. So we've got opportunities for bass and for, so I was just talking to a gentleman at my booth earlier about catching gar on a fly. So this idea that it's just trout fishing, I think is a little outdated, and something that we as a club, yes, we are a Trout Unlimited chapter, but with our FFI affiliation, we really want to spread the love of fly fishing and showcase how much more the sport has to offer than just trout. But also, obviously trout is kind of where it all started, right? So we've got that heritage, which is really cool.
I know from the catfish, crappie, bass world, the tackle, the rods are so interesting how they get so technical, but I don't think people appreciate you're not taking the same one that you're catching a trout with a false albacore. And I had a friend on Travis Eden, Kingfisher Guide Service, who did that with false albacore. Could you explain what the setup is for people that don't know for false? Because that's a shoulder workout what you guys have to do to catch them.
Yeah. So when you talk about a fly rod, in its most basic sense, you scale up or down the size of the rod based on, your pursuit, right? For something like an albacore, one of my favorite sayings, so a lot of people fish in like the Cape Lookout area or the Cape Lookout Bight. They call that the place where 8 weights go to die. Because, a false albacore real quick, if you don't have control of him, he'll tuck you under the boat and snap your rod real fast. I personally like to fish a 9 or a 10 weight for them. You get a little bit more control of the fish. You can bring them in a little bit quicker. Ultimately, these aren't, where it's all catch and release fishing. And so the best thing we can do is get the fish in quickly and get a safe release. And it's still usually a 5-6 minute fight. And he's swimming 40 miles an hour, making 2 screaming runs of 200 yards or more. I mean, it's kind of like a battlefield out there. It's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that there's any fishing in the state that even rivals that,
That's incredible. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to get into fly fishing and dabble with it, like what would be a basic setup?
So a lot of times you hear a 9-foot 5 weight, right, is the go-to. 9'5" or 6. I really do think it depends on where you're located and what you're after, right? We're at the Bass and Saltwater Expo. Probably the best well-rounded rod for people who are looking to fish for bass and in saltwater is probably going to be an 8 weight.
Interesting.
It is a little bit heavier. You talked about wearing your arm out a little bit. But when you get into choosing a fly rod, the reason that you would make a selection is always based on the size of the fly you want to throw and the conditions you need to throw it in. So with bass, you're typically throwing top water, something that's a little bit heavier, a little bit more wind resistant, so you need a little heavier rod. In the saltwater, it may not be a bigger fly, but a lot of times it's the wind and the conditions that you're having to fight through to get a fly out there. So for somebody interested in that, I think the 8 weight's great. If you want to do if you want to do panfish and you want to do trout and stuff like that, 4, 5, 6 is a great place to start. Another great idea, is to find your local fishing club. Whether it's us here in Raleigh and the Triangle Fly Fishers, Trout Unlimited is all over the country, though. So if you go up the coast here, there'll be other chapters. Get involved with them. You can look them up online, find your local chapter, figure out where they meet, and go meet somebody. I'm sure you guys are no stranger to fishing. You can spend a lot of money on the wrong gear,
God, yes.
right?
Yes, you can.
So having somebody kind of steer you is usually a great place to start.
What do you think about carp? Because I think it's very interesting how at least where I'm at, there's a growing sect of people that have figured out that this is like a poor man's bonefish.
Absolutely. Yeah, carp's awesome. Hands down, one of the hardest fish to catch. Maybe in general, I don't know. They're so persnickety, I think is a fun word to use for them, right? Mm-hmm. They can be spooky. They can be very selective. I know also from a physiological standpoint, right? Carp have really strong lateral lines and are really sensitive. And apparently, I read somewhere that they can actually smell. So if you you take your original bait and you want to make sure you kind of get your scent off of it, because they could come onto a fly that's got human smell on it and turn away from it there. So they're really smart. In the fly fishing world, that pursuit is what I think guys really enjoy. That makes them a great species for a fly rod. We talked about what's the gear for that. A 7-weight. So you're kind of starting to tuck up into that higher range of heavier rod. But they're a lot of fun. You can pursue them on foot, which is great.
Yeah.
To walk out, and get knee deep in the mud and get right down there with them. I mean, there's really no better way to pursue a fish, in my opinion, if you're really looking for an immersive experience.
What are some things people should know about fly fishing so they can get involved? Because I feel like there is, when you're talking about people that have never been into fly fishing before, they get kind of nervous about trying something new. What would you tell them?
I think there's a lot of people who are getting nervous about getting into fly fishing because there's a lot of unknown there, right? If you have a foundation in fishing, you already have the basis to be a good fly fisherman, right? And that's understanding the fisheries you're in, understanding how the fish respond, where they're going to be is a big part of it, right? You don't want to be throwing a fly where there's no fish, right? I think that you find a lot of guys who come over to the fly fishing side of things. Some people call it the dark side, maybe. But they come over and, they have the right instincts. The next thing you got to do is learn to cast, right? You can get a long ways fishing, fly fishing, only learning how to roll cast, right? You don't have to be somebody who can throw a line through the air, 80, 100 yards, right? A lot, especially for trout, panfish, even bass, you can get away with roll casting in a lot of situations. So don't let that keep you off the water. But the next thing I would say is getting a good cast and learning how to get a 30-foot cast, is really the place you kind of want to get to be able to do some really proficient fishing.
Interesting stuff. Stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to be taking your questions again. And guys, please comment down below if you have any questions or you just want to yell at me, say hi. Let me know that if you're in the chat here. Let's see. We got Randy's got a question. What is your go-to smallmouth fly?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm a pretty, if you want my personal opinion, I'm a pretty picky smallmouth fisherman. I really like drifting topwater bugs.
Ooh, that's fun, yeah.
You guys are obviously in the area up there in Virginia, New River and all that stuff. The old gentleman, Chuck Kraft, some of you guys may know him. He was one of the most famous guys to fish up in that area and kind of invented the little wine cork, popper.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just kind of splatting a cork out there, letting it drift for a few minutes like a cicada or, kind of a topwater pattern. Man, when they smack it, there's nothing like it.
Oh, no.
That's my favorite. You can fish. We've got some flies that kind of mimic things like a Ned rig, bouncing things off the bottom. Some game changers will work when you're in like a fast current or something like that. Some little mini game changers, which are just like articulated flies, swim kind of like a bait fish. But to me, there's just nothing that beats a topwater eat from a smallie.
Oh, God, no. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. We got Joshua in this thing. What up, Thomas? Josh, let me know how everything sounds and if you got any questions here. In my area, and this actually, I say my area, it's a national thing, but I talk a lot with the river keepers that take care of the Upper James, the Potomac River, Shenandoah, places like that. With Trout Unlimited, do you guys partner with any local government sources or any private nonprofits to do cleanups and just to take care of the rivers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with TU, obviously a big part of what we want to be doing is conservation, right? We've worked with a couple of groups, and the name is escaping right now, up in Canton, doing some tree plantings with them along the Pigeon Rivers and things like that. We've actually got an event coming up. If you guys check out the way we organize our groups, if you're local, is through our meetup page. That's the best place to go kind of figure out what we're working on. We're working with a group now called The Big Sweep, and we're going to do some local stuff around the Crabtree Creek and some of the streams around here. We've done some stuff with the Noose River Keeper and the Tar River Keeper and all those. We also have worked with Sound Rivers, which is an organization, I believe, I don't want to say they're out of Little Washington, but I think it's kind of over that area, taking care of the Pamlico and that area, helping install things like what they call it a trash trout. It's this really interesting invention that somebody came up with. It sits in a river and it's kind of like a chain link trap. And as trash comes down on the surface, right, it funnels all of that trash into this little, chain link impoundment. And then you go in and clean that out. So we've done some stuff helping donate and helping raise money for installing some of those. So we've got a lot of opportunities, and if I can make a shameless plug, we love more volunteers. We love boots on the ground. If you visit our website at triangleflyfishers.org, there's a button. If you're interested in volunteering, just sign up there and we'll get in touch with you. Always can use more help.
Is there an event you have coming up that you definitely need help that you know off the top of your head?
There are, I'm sure everybody's aware of the devastation that happened over in the western part of our state. We're regularly in touch with our state level Trout Unlimited group. They're always putting stuff on. So what happens is they make a call out to us and say, do you have anybody who can help? And we go to that volunteer list and we contact them and let them know, hey, we've got an opportunity. I don't have anything like today, but like I said, we're working on with the big sweep that will be here in the next couple months. So that would probably be the next immediate one, or getting some people headed towards the mountains to help with some of the cleanup up there.
You mentioned it. We haven't really talked about it here. The hurricane came through, really knocked a huge portion of the Appalachia in North Carolina. I've gotten this question a bunch, and I want to keep reiterating. People online saying, like, well, all the fish are gone, they got blown downstream, the fishing will never recover. Well, we're here, no rhyme, reason, or rumors. What's the fishing like after the hurricane?
It's a great question that I cannot answer personally, unfortunately. I'm headed up there in May for my first time. I want to make sure we gave them some time to recover. Some areas want tourists right now. Some are still kind of need more help than that, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's worth calling if you're interested in fly fishing up there, or even just fishing traditionally, giving the local fly shop a call and checking on them, right? Asking how they're doing, how are the streams, how are the communities surrounding them, and are they open for business? I think that's always important to ask. The word that I'm getting is that, there's obviously a lot of devastation. Some of the roads are impassable to some of the great spots that used to be there. Wilson's Creek in particular, which is a great trout stream, they're kind of impacted like downtown Asheville, right there on the French Broad River. Hard to access certain areas still in devastation. Some of the good things that I've heard, the Brian Setzer fish hatchery, which is up near the Davidson, they actually fared okay. They were actually planning a total revamp of that hatchery starting this year.
Wow.
Where they were going to take stocking out of service from there and pull fish from other places, which would have had some impact on the fisheries too. But they're going to stay in business, quote unquote, for a little while here, and make sure that we're getting some fish into our local rivers for people to come up and catch. So I think it's going to take some time to rebound. If you remember, there was a flood, it was maybe, I want to say 2018, 2019 up on the Davidson, which is areas I have a little more intimate knowledge. I fish it, a couple times a year. And they had a bad flood up there, and you definitely saw an impact on the fishery. It was just starting to get back to a really wonderful place. So I'm interested to see it myself, to be honest.
Does the flooding really affect their spawn? I mean, when do trout, let's just go with trout for I think most people listening right now understand like the bass spawn and stuff. Do trout spawn at the same time? Do they have a different type of spawning season?
There is a certain time of year that they're spawning, right? And they go into what's called their red, where they actually like lay their eggs, and they kind of, just like there's going to be people who probably call me out here for giving false information, so I want to be careful.
Yeah.
Like bluegill, they have their little beds, and you can see their little beds. A trout red is similar, right? And I'm not a trout biologist, so again, want to be careful. But yes, so they're protecting a red in a similar way about the same time of year. Your brown trout and things like that will actually, they might, if they're a lake run trout, they might run up a river to actually do their spawning, which is kind of neat. Which is a great opportunity for fishing them, as they make a run up to do some spawning. And then, obviously a lot of our trout, are wild, like our brook trout. And those fish again, would have a normal time of year that they would typically mate. And best practice is probably to leave them alone when they're truly spawning, because you want to make sure that they're able to do it successfully, so that we've got enough fish for everybody.
So I've had many conversations on the channel with Pennsylvania. I know they have some interesting laws of you can fish this section this time, this section this time. This is only a fly rod on a Tuesday. What is that like here? Is it, if people are not from this state, is it pretty lax, the laws of where you can go? Are there certain places that you can only go certain times a year?
Yeah, the best thing, and I guess if you're fishing kind of the trout side of things, familiarizing yourself with the wildlife department and their signage, right? You can get that on their website and check it out. You've got things like delayed harvest. You got fly rod only sections. You have catch and release only section. A lot of it's single hook as well, right? You want to kind of make sure you're aware of where you're fishing and what the regulations are. And again, as a Trout Unlimited chapter, we preach, I should say, catch and release, right? So that's something we believe strongly in. But as a whole, just making sure you're familiar with where you're fishing and what the regulations are, I think is probably most important. They're very similar, it sounds like, to what you guys have in Pennsylvania.
And then something, I had one question pop on the screen, and this will probably be the last question, is what is your favorite species to target in freshwater?
In freshwater? That's a really good question. Somebody asked about smallmouth earlier. It makes me giggle, man. I mean, when you catch one and it just explodes on the surface like that. I've been lucky enough to float with a gentleman out, who's in the Virginia area, who really just does some spectacular fishing, and is able to put you on some citation and some larger smallmouth.
James River?
He's over near the Abington area.
Okay, yeah.
So he's fishing some of the rivers in that area, but he just does some awesome stuff, and I think it's probably smallmouth. I really, really enjoy that fish.
Have you had the opportunity to target muskie yet?
I have not. It's on my list. I think muskie look like just, a once in a lifetime fish, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'd really love to do that.
It's because at least I know in Virginia and stuff, man, that's a whole other tribe of people that just target those muskie. But that's what's fascinating to me with fly fishing is they even said, like, for albacore and like the muskie, you can't set like you would think you would set. You have to point and you're literally just doing like a dumbbell row to puncture that mouth, which that's such a little interesting detail that I never would have thought of with fly fishing that you have to do sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you really love spin fishing, right, I think go grab go grab a book about fly fishing. Again, just kind of drop here if you're in the Raleigh area. We'll have our fly fishing film tour coming to Marbles IMAX on the 27th. Come watch the films, right? Come see the diversity in the species that people are out there catching. Come see the dedication and like the these guys. You're talking about muskie and being a different breed of fisherman, different breed of angler. These guys live these things, right? They live after that one moment with that one giant muskie getting them on board. Come check it out, right? It's something like that's a great way to get exposure to a bunch of different types of fly fishing. And I think if you love fishing, it's hard not to see the beauty in the other side of the sport.
Sir, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that we need to make sure we touch on?
No, I think it's been great. Thank you for having me. I would say if it's something you're interested in, Trout Unlimited is a great place to start. Fly Fishers International is a great place to start. A lot of those guys have local boots on the ground, and I think finding a place where you can go have a beer with a couple guys who know what they're doing is a really good place to get involved.
Awesome stuff.
Cool,
well,
man.
guys, there you have it. I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is what we're going to be doing, guys. We are going to be taking a break. Our next interview is scheduled for 2 p.m. 2 p.m. is the schedule, right? I potentially have someone. I'm going to go to a quick commercial break. If this person doesn't come on, we're going to shut the live stream down and restart a new one. That way I'm not going 15 hours for one live stream like it's a Lord of the Rings uncut version. So quick commercial break here, guys, and we'll be seeing you soon. Please like. It really helps push this thing in the algorithm. Share it out. Comment. It really helps. We will see you guys.
to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing? We are back. We are here at the Raleigh Fishing Expo. This is day 2. We're at 12:43. We got our last guest for part 1 of the day before we're going to go on an intermission till 2 p.m. We're going to have an intermission around 2 p.m. and we'll be back with the North Carolina biologists from their Department of Natural Resources or Wildlife Resources, depending on how they do the acronym there. But next on, I have Dan, and he's got a really cool story, and we're going to learn together. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys talking to me.
No, you're welcome. So, I mean, how did you get started in this? Is this welding?
It is, I'll call it fringe welding. So the artwork that we have on sale is made on a laser table. So the laser cuts the steel, and then my wife and I assemble it. And so it's not technically welding, but I do weld.
That's really cool. How did you get into this?
So what got me down this path specifically with doing the laser table work, I wrecked my motorcycle. So I have this awesome 85 Ninja 900, the Top Gun bike. And of course I had a fall on it. So luckily didn't get hurt too bad, but I broke apart on the bike and I was trying to manually fabricate a piece that I needed to repair it. And it was looking terrible. I was doing it by hand on a grinder and so on. And at where I was taking welding class, we had a plasma cutting machine in the room that was just behind me, and I looked over my shoulder and I was like, the right way to make this piece is to learn how to use that machine. So I went home. That was on a Thursday night. I spent a little over 30 hours through the weekend before the next class on Tuesday night, learned how to do the CAD program and run the machine. So I came in that next Tuesday night and did a test cut, and then in the next class session on Thursday, I came in with my piece designed and ready to go. So I cut one out, and I was like, hey, that's really cool, but I probably should make a couple more just in case I mess it up, because I had some more work to do on it. So I just hit the button 3 more times and ran out 3 copies. Well, one thing led to another, and my welding instructor, who I've become good friends with, was in the Army at one time, and he had always wanted a metal flag. So we started tossing around some ideas and drawing on the chalkboard, and we started designing this. And during the process, and I actually drew the frame of the flag out in different sizes and sizes on the board, and we decided that this was the sweet spot. This flag is 42 inches wide, and we put the pledge in the red stripe piece. So I went back and designed that, and this took over the course of several weeks, and we cut it and so on, and then we had a local powder coat guy that we went to, and we knew that it was going to look good. But when we got it back and we put the pieces together, we were just blown away. We were like, wow, this thing looks really good.
It looks amazing. How long does it take you to make a single piece?
So when we did the prototypes, it was literally taking us about 8 hours to do a flag.
Wow.
So we did about 5 different runs for various reasons. The very first flag is hanging in the welding class in the high school, and that's in Watauga High School, where every morning they say the Pledge of Allegiance. So one neat spin-off thing of this was that when I was testing the letters, I wanted to make sure I had the design file correct and that the table would cut that resolution okay. So we did a test run on just a rectangular piece of steel, and it turned out great. All the letters cut out nice and it looked good. Spray painted it, took it to the office, and we said, hey, if every morning a student reads the Pledge of Allegiance over the PA, and the students stand in class, but they get nervous. So they'll lose their place and forget exactly how the Pledge of Allegiance goes. So now in the office at the high school is our very first cut of the pledge on a piece of steel. So they're able to keep track and so on.
That's awesome. What is this other piece that you have right here?
So this other piece ended up being the company logo, and it's another really cool story. So I'm glad you asked. I'm getting off-screen direction here. So anyway, I came into class one day, and this character had been drawn on the board, just in blue marker. I have the original photo in my phone. and there were like musical notes drawn around them as well, like he was whistling. And I looked at it and I go, that guy is the happy welder. And I told my instructor, I said, hey, the student that drew it was pretty cool. So I said, hey, I could probably do something with that, because we were just learning to use the table. And so I went home and I put the ovals around it and the lettering and so on. And then we cut it and presented it to the student later that year. And she was kind of blown away. So it's kind of a cool story. But then that kind of went straight into, we were starting to come up with the business for doing the flag. And I wanted to name it the Happy Welder. So this is now I've submitted the trademark application for this piece, is the logo for the company. And my wife takes this piece, lays it on the shirt.
That's so cool.
And sprays it with bleach. And then this is how it ends up looking. So we have t-shirts also.
How did you foresee this becoming what it is today?
Oh, no way. I was a programmer for 38 years. Really? Yes. Started out at IBM in Charlotte, and then after 17 years, we got sold, and then bought, and then eventually I got laid off. So I got laid off the year before COVID, and 38 years of IT. It was great work, or I had good people, good work. It was fun, but 38 years of IT is a long time. And then I had started taking welding a few years prior to that. And welding was something I had always wanted to learn. I do all kinds of things, woodworking and repair, everything, but I had never learned how to weld. And people say, why did you want to learn to weld? Which, that surprised me they even asked, but I was like, well, before I could weld, I used to have to say I can do everything but weld. So now I don't have to say that. So anyway, one thing led to another, and then learning to use the machine, and we did those runs of the flag. And everybody that saw it was like, you just blown away. And, the first thing they would say would be something like, wow. And then the second thing was, you should sell those. So I was like, you know what? I kind of need something to bridge me to true retirement. And this is fun. So I had done some of the hard work, and never had a company, never owned a business, never worked with manufacturers, but located a manufacturer that could cut the tables. These are, the flags, these are cut on a laser table in Indian Trail outside of Charlotte by a family-owned business, and then they carry them over to another family-owned business that powder coats them, and then my wife and I pick them up and assemble them in our kitchen in Charlotte.
Wow.
So the first load we picked up, we ordered 25 flags. This flag weighs 42 pounds.
Jeez.
So it's 2 pieces of 12-gauge steel. Each color is a piece because of how the powder coat process. So 12-gauge union, 12-gauge stripes, and then 16-gauge is the back piece. And on the back, I have bracketry for hanging with a standard TV wall mount, which for like a little over $20 you can get at Walmart, one that has plenty weight capacity for a 40-pound flag. So anyway, 40 pounds times 25, that's 1,000 pounds of steel that we were picking up. So I drove over there in my 20-year-old Tacoma, which is now 23 years old and sitting out in the parking lot, and with a utility trailer, and we put a pallet of unions in the back and the other 2 pallets, the red and white pieces, on the trailer, and that sat in our garage for a while as we picked off each piece and assembled them in the kitchen.
That is crazy. How much steel would you go through in, let's say, a month?
Well, we're not at any kind of volume levels right now, so we did that batch of 25, and we're working on, getting those sold. So, we're not at that level yet, but we want to be there. And then we also have this, I call it the arrow flag. Another funny story, I scratched one of the white pieces. I did it when I stacked these things all around our living room. It looked pretty cool. I actually have a photo of it. So I had like 12 flags stacked, leaned on the couches and tables and stuff. Made a very impressive picture, but in the process I scratched one of the pieces. I was like, I can't believe it. So I took the piece off and put the flag back together just so to keep it together while I was getting it repaired. And it ended up looking kind of nice itself. So we call that the aerodynamic flag. So we decided to make that a product as well.
Oh, wow. Now, is this something that for people that don't know that are listening in, and myself included, Generally speaking, when you're doing the designs, is it something that you design in some software and then the machine will cut it to you, or are you doing everything by hand 100%?
This is all designed in a CAD program. There's many different CAD programs out there. I'm using the CAD program that came with the plasma machine that's at the school. So the design work is difficult. I don't know if you've ever used CAD programs, but like I said, there's a lot of varieties of them. I'm using a two-dimensional CAD, which is a little easier than some of the traditional three-dimensional stuff, but two-dimensional is all I need. So a lot of time spending on design, and I spent a great deal of time on this flag. I have the holes all lined up and everything that if I ever wanted to do a vertical configuration flag, which when you hang the flag vertically, the union is supposed to be on the left side. So they have it hung correctly over here. If you ever see it any other way, that's incorrect.
Interesting, okay.
So that works fine with a cloth flag because it's red, white, and blue on both sides, but this is a one-sided flag. But if I unstack the pieces, flip them over, and screw them back together, then it's vertical configuration. But to do that, I had to get some of the screw holes centered, and I had to do extra holes on the bracketry on back. But basically, it all just kind of comes apart, flip it around, screw it back together, and now you've got a proper vertical configuration flag.
That is so cool. Where do you see yourself in a couple of years with this?
Where do I see myself what?
Where do you see your business in a couple of years? What would you like to evolve and grow into?
We have other pieces in mind. We'd like to do some smaller flags, and we could do plain flags as well as the pledge. And then I've started, besides these other pieces, I have a custom piece that highlights, like if you did a hunting or a fishing trip where you caught a big fish. The picture I actually have is of a family friend who shot a bison out west, and he had this awesome photo. So he sent it to me, and I was like, I got to do something with this. So I took the photo, and what popped in my mind, his name's Joe. What popped in my mind was once was Buffalo Bill, now there's Bison Joe. So I made this piece with exactly that, with an 11x14 copy of the photo. And then around the perimeter of the piece has the details of the hunt, the gun that he used, the date, the location, and how long the shot was. So I would, that's something that I would like to do, is some custom work like that. I'm offering that. I will be offering that as a piece on my website. But other than that, just want to have some fun doing a few different products and, bridge to retirement.
Awesome stuff. Sir, if people would like to find your stuff, if they can't get to the Raleigh Expo right now, how can they find you?
So the best place is our website. It is thehappywelder.com. It's easy as that. Right now we do have these two flags on that website ready to buy. $5.95 for the big one, $4.90 for the full flag, $4.95 for the arrow flag without the back piece. If you were in person, you'd see this thing pops. It's powder coated. It's put together with stainless steel screws, and it's designed to hang with a TV wall mount. I think I mentioned that before. So I've actually had one of these mounted on the back of my truck, bouncing down gravel roads for the past 15 months.
Wow.
And if I washed it off, anytime I wash it off, it looks like this. It looks brand new.
Wow.
And the customer for our first flag was the welding shop in Boone. They have it hanging over their entrance door. So it's on the outside of the building in Boone. So these are made to put outside, and they will last.
That's so cool.
I'll leave you with a little bit of trivia, or I'll put you on the spot a little bit. So if a flag touches the ground, or do you have to burn it?
So when I was a kid, that's what I was taught, is you'd have to burn it if it touches the ground. It's not supposed to.
Say again, I'm sorry.
So yeah, growing up, that's what I was taught.
Right.
I
think we all heard that.
Yeah.
Flag touches the ground, you got to burn it. That's not true. What it really boils down to is if a flag is dirty, the flag should never be presented in a way that is not befitting of the flag. So if it gets dirty, if it touches the ground and gets dirty, you should clean it. You can still display it. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you do decide to throw away a flag, it's gotten dirty and you can't clean it, or it's just torn up or whatever, again, the flag should never be seen in a way that's unbefitting of the flag. So you wouldn't want to see a flag laying in the trash can. So that's where the burning it comes from. You should get it out of sight. You shouldn't let it be seen like that.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much for that information. I didn't know that at all. Like, I grew up just thinking this one thing where if it touched the ground, you have to burn it. But no, awesome stuff, guys. Come on, check him out. He's right next to us down here at the Raleigh Expo. We're going to be here all day. Come say hi. If not, you got his information. Go check him out. Go purchase this amazing, amazing piece of artwork. Sir, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. So, guys, this is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be taking a lunch break here. It is 1 o'clock. So we will be back around 2 o'clock Eastern time to finish out day 2 at the Expo. Another thing is, if you would like to, guys, come check me out on Patreon. Everything that I do is completely free. If it wasn't for my Patreon supporters, none of this would actually happen, or I wouldn't be able to do anything. We only have a couple of spots left. I believe we only have 29 Patreon spots left. I believe maybe it's 31. Check us out there. I will see you guys back here at 2 p.m. I'm going to be taking this stream down. I'm taking this stream down, and I'll be starting a new stream, so go check that out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. 2 p.m. is when we are going to be back here. I'll see you guys later.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jerry.